Hi, I'm Chad with Move for a Guitar. This lesson is from our series, Music Theory for Guitar. In this lesson, I'm going to show you another way to play triad inversions. First off, download our free e-guide, Music Theory for Guitar. It contains everything that I'm talking about in this lesson, all the charts and diagrams, as well as much more, so it'll be really useful to you. And like I said, it's free, so there's no reason not to just go download that. But I am working on it right now as I'm filming this lesson, so it may not be available as you're watching this lesson. And if it's not available yet, it'll say coming soon. And if you'd like to get notified when it is available, you can sign up for our mailing list and we'll send you a notification for when it is available and let you download it. And also, if you're signed up for our mailing list, you'll receive all updated versions as well. But don't worry, you don't need the e-guide to follow along with this lesson because all the charts and diagrams will be on the screen. And also, we add at least one new lesson every day, so be sure to subscribe. This is part 2.8 from our series Music Theory for Guitar. If you'd like to go back and start at the beginning, you can click the link on the screen. So last lesson we looked at triad inversions, and we looked at them on 3 adjacent strings moving horizontally up the neck. For example, if we took this triad on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd strings, we would have just continued this up on the same set of strings to the 1st and 2nd inversion. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to take your triads on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd string, and instead of moving them up horizontally, we're going to move them more vertically up towards the ceiling if you're holding your guitar. In this lesson, we're not worried about starting in root position and going to 1st inversion, then 2nd inversion. It's going to be different than that. What we're really going to be doing is just taking the highest note and moving it to the lowest note every time, and I'm going to show you what that ends up doing. And being able to visualize your triads this way is going to really open up your fretboard. You don't want to just be stuck visualizing them moving horizontally up your neck. You also want to be able to visualize how they connect going up vertically towards the ceiling. And again, when I say going up towards the ceiling, I'm talking about when you're holding your guitar. Obviously, I just drew an arrow pointing down on this diagram, but we're looking at it as if you were holding the guitar. So this is going to allow you to have more options for being able to grab different triads quickly. You'll be able to combine triads together for a fuller sounding chord. This will also help when you get into soloing, which we'll talk more about that later. And it basically just allows you to visualize everything fluidly up and down the fretboard and not just visualize your fretboard in small segments. And in this lesson, I'm showing these as major triads, but the system we're using will work for all the other triads as well. It'll work for minor, diminished, and augmented. The same system of just taking the highest note and moving it to the lowest note. And all the triad shapes are in the e-guide, so you'll be able to use that as a reference if you have any questions. So we're just going to start with the triad on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd string, the one that's on your screen. And this is in root position, but we're not worried about that right now. We're not really worried so much about root position, 1st inversion, 2nd inversion right now. We're more worried about just combining these and being able to move in a different way. And eventually it is something you'll just memorize, but I don't think you need to worry too much about that right now. So like I said, to go to the next triad, what we're going to do is take the highest note and we're going to move it to the lowest note. And the other 2 notes are going to stay in place. So from this triad, if you take the highest note, which is the 5th of this voicing, and move it to the lowest note, you would move it here like I just pointed to, and this would be your new triad, which ends up being a major triad on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string, and it's a 2nd inversion, but again, we're not too worried about that. So this is a triad that you know we've already gone over this chord shape. It's just we're reaching it through a different method. Then we just keep doing the same thing. We take the highest note in this shape, which in this shape is a major 3rd, and we move that up towards the ceiling, which moves it down in pitch. So we're taking it from the highest note and putting it to the lowest note, and you end up moving it here. And this is your next shape. Again, that's a triad shape that we've gone over. And then do it again. You take the highest note, move it to your lowest note. So this root is moving to here. And you end up with this shape, which is, again, a shape that you should be familiar with. And here's all of those connected. So you can see right here is the first one we started with. Here's the second one. Here's the third one. And here's the last one. So you can see how they all connect. and each time we moved the highest note, we left the other two notes in place. So we took the highest note, moved to the lowest note, left the other two in place. And then you can just do the same thing for the other two inversions. So we started with this one on the first, second, and third string. Now we're going to move up to the next inversion, which would actually be first inversion, but we're not too worried about that. We're just moving up to the next closest triad on the same string sets and doing the same thing. So here's the next closest triad on the same string set as the one we started with, and we just go through the same process. In this shape, we would take that root, take it from the highest note, move it to the lowest note, you would get this shape. From this shape, we would take the 5, move it to the lowest note, you get that shape. And from here, you take the 3, move it to the lowest note, and you get that shape. And here's all of those together, and you can see how they connect just like the last one. And then from there, you're moving up on the same string sets as the one we started with and doing the same thing. So you're starting with this triad, and you take the 3 from this, move it to the lowest note. That's your next triad shape. Take the root, move it to the lowest note. Take the 5th, move it to the lowest note. And then you have all the triad shapes from there, and you end up with all of them together would look like this. And then if we looked at all 3 of those sets together, it would look like this. So here's the first set that we started with, second set, third set. Or you could look at them as breaking them apart as we looked at them horizontally. This one would go to this one, that one would go to this one, and so on with each string set. Next set of strings would be here, to here, to here, and then you could do it through the next string set. And this is just a way to be able to visualize how all these connect together and really open up your fretboard. And I have these written out in these 3 locations, but obviously through Unison notes and octaves, these notes are in more places than what I'm just showing on this fretboard. They would just continue to repeat up, or they'd be down here as well. For example, this 5, there's a 2 octave 5 apart right here, and so on. But I'm assuming you understand that by now if you've come this far through these lessons. And as you're looking at them all together, I also want to just point out that the distance between a root and a third is always the same no matter where you look at it. Horizontally, it's always the same distance. Same as a 3 to a 5. Anywhere you look at it, it's going to be the same distance. And same as a 5 to a root. Anywhere you look at it, it's going to be the same distance. And also, root always goes to 3, that's the next closest interval. 3 always goes to 5, that's the next closest interval. And 5 always goes to root, that's the next closest interval. So hopefully that opens up your eyes a little more to how the triads lay on the fretboard, how they relate to each other, how the intervals relate to each other. And it's just another way to look at this and be able to visualize your fretboard as a whole and not just in tiny segments to where you can't see everything together. And also this gives you another way to practice them. You can start, like I showed you, start with a higher triad and practice moving them up vertically instead of just horizontally. So now you can practice them 2 ways, moving horizontally and vertically, and it's really going to nail them down for you, help you memorize them, and help you visualize them as you're playing. And again, these are all in the e-guide, so download that and use it as a reference. It'll be useful to you. You'll be able to use it for years to come. And you can move on to the next lesson where I'm going to talk more in depth about augmented triad inversions. And be sure to subscribe because we add at least 1 new lesson every day.